become a saint. And it was due to this encounter with 4 saintly persons who, during the period of Chaturmasya, stayed in one place, and his mother, who was a maidservant, she was serving them. And the little boy, who was not going to school, the mother couldn't afford to send him to any school, he was listening to the discussions of these saintly persons and offering them some service. And of course, he received some of their holy prasadam. And through that 4-month period, he became more and more enlightened, although he was so young. And he's explaining that he was self-controlled already. He had no attachment for sports, even though he was a young boy. He was not naughty, and he did not speak more than required. All very praiseworthy qualities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, all the Vedas are searching after me. Yeah, so that's verse 15:15. Vedaishcha sarviraham eva vedya. Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. All the Vedas are searching after me. Lord Shri Chaitanya says that in the Vedas, the subject matters are only 3, namely, to establish the relation of the living entities with the personality of Godhead, sambandha, perform relative duties in devotional service, abhideya, and thus achieve the ultimate goal back to Godhead, prayojana, or attaining love of God. In other words, being introduced to Krishna, learning how to serve Him, and then engaging in the service, and ultimately attaining pure love of God, and going back to Godhead. As such, Vedantavadis, or followers of the Vedas, indicate the pure devotees of the personality of Godhead. Such Vedantavadis, or the Bhakti Vedantas, are impartial to distributing the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. That means they'll teach this knowledge to anyone without specific qualification of birth or anything like that. Family lineage, birth, economic status, etc. To them, no one is enemy or friend. No one is educated or uneducated. No one is especially favorable, and no one is unfavorable. The Bhaktivedantas see that the people in general are wasting time in false, sensuous things. Their business is to get the ignorant mass of people to reestablish the lost relationship with the personality of Godhead. By such endeavor, even the most forgotten soul is roused up to the sense of spiritual life, and thus being initiated by the Bhaktivedantas, the people in general gradually progress on the path of transcendental realization. So the Vedantavadis, initiated by the boy, even before he became self-controlled and was detached from childish sporting, etc. But before the initiation, he, the boy, became more and more advanced in discipline, which is very essential for one who wishes to make progress in the line. In the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is the beginning of actual human life, small boys after 5 years of age are sent to become brahmachari or gurus or brahmachari at the guru's ashram, where these things are systematically taught to boys, be they king's sons or sons of ordinary citizens. The training was compulsory, not only to create good citizens of the state, but also to prepare each boy's future life for spiritual realization. The irresponsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the children of the followers of the Varnashram system. The boy was even injected with spiritual acumen, spiritual, in other words, expertise, before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. The boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. Both the father and mother were responsible for the boy's success in being liberated from the material bondage. That is the process of successful family planning. It is to beget children for complete perfection, without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient. No one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master, and without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. Well, here's very specific instructions. Without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient, no one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master, and without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. So there's a question mark here. The boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. Now the question is, how is that? What does that mean exactly? So acumen means expertise. Let's just look that word up, make sure. The ability to make good judgments and quick decisions, typically in a particular domain. Okay. The ability to make good judgments and quick decisions, typically in a particular domain. So it's an expert in some ways. So the boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. So this depends on the lifestyle of the father. If the father is a serious follower of Vedic Dharma and is leading a life of Krishna consciousness, then the fact of his consciousness will influence the child. And, of course, the mother also has to be in proper consciousness. So the state of consciousness that they both have at the moment of inception determines, to a large extent, the quality of the child. But here it says that Narada Muni was injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. So, definitely it's related to the father's lifestyle. Okay, so there are a lot of important points in this purport. First of all, Prabhupada writes about this also in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it says, ninth chapter, verse number 2. Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavagam Dharmam Susakam Kartamavyam. Where he says, this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it's the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. Well, in the purport, Prabhupada explains about the education of Narada Muni. And he says, in the Vedanta Sutra 3.2.26, it's the 9th chapter, 2nd verse. This is also described in the following words: Prakasas cha karmani abhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. A practical example of this can be seen in the previous life of Narada, who in that life happened to be the son of a maidservant. He had no education, nor was he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged, and sometimes, in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. Narada personally says, in this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.25, Narada describes his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. He says that while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food in their dishes, and the boy would wash their dishes, wanted to taste the remnants. So he asked the great devotees for their permission, and when they gave it, Narada ate those remnants and consequently became freed from all sinful reactions. As he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting, and Narada gradually developed the same taste. Narada says further, by associating with the sages, Narada got the taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and he developed a great desire for devotional service. Therefore, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, Prakasas cha karmani abhyasat, if one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically, and he can understand. This is called pratyaksha, directly perceived. The word dharmyam means the path of religion. Narada was actually a son of a maidservant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother, and fortunately his mother rendered some service to the devotees. The child Narada also got the opportunity, and simply by association achieved the highest goal of all religion. The highest goal of all religion is devotional service, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsa Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktira Hoksaje. Religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of devotional service, as we have already discussed in regard to the last verse of chapter 8, Vedesu Yagyesu Tapasu Chaiva. Generally, Vedic knowledge is required for self-realization. But here, although Narada never went to the school of the spiritual master and was not educated in the Vedic principles, he acquired the highest results of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is also confirmed in Vedic literature. Acharyavam Purusho Veda, one who is in association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has never studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. The process of devotional service is a very happy one. Susukam. Why? Devotional service consists of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God. Nice, palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what, even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history. Simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumara became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice, and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to Him. Okay, so it's a very nice summary of Narada Muni's life by Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita. And he quotes the next two verses that we're going to read here. So first thing is, the goal of all Vedic knowledge is to know Krishna. Therefore, if you read Bhagavad Gita and use that and Srimad Bhagavatam as the two main texts that you study in life, you will know Krishna. Because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Krishna, spoken by great purified devotees. Is there any other subject in life that one should know? Not really. You don't need any other subject to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So, therefore, devotees do not waste their time with other things. They just focus on these two texts, and they obtain all knowledge. I mean, how could you be more successful than Narada Muni? It's impossible. He's the most successful human being. Right? And he did it simply by associating with pure devotees and being serious and not attached to frivolous things. And he was not naughty. He did not speak more than required. He had control of his mind and senses, although he's a little 5-year-old boy. Okay, so then another major point here is the Bhakti Vedantas see that people in general are wasting time in false, sensuous things. Their business is to get the ignorant mass of people to reestablish the lost relationship with the personality of Godhead. That's the main point. The most important relationship we have in this life is with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, if we can focus on developing that relationship, everyone else wants a relationship with this person, that person, so-called. But the most important relationship is that with Krishna. And we've forgotten that. And it's all because of our preoccupation with sensuous things. Sensuous means sense gratification. So, the Bhakti Vedantas, or genuine devotees, they are trying to get people interested again in reestablishing their lost relationship with Krishna. By such endeavor, even the most forgotten soul is roused up to the sense of spiritual life, and thus being initiated by the Bhakti Vedantas, the people in general gradually progress on the path of transcendental realization. So, what happened? The Bhakti Vedantas initiated the boy even before he became self-controlled and was detached from childish sporting, etc. But before the initiation, the boy, meaning Narada, became more and more advanced in discipline, which is very essential for one who wishes to make progress in the line. So what is the discipline? Well, the discipline is basically following the regulative principles. If we can do that and chant Hare Krishna and enjoy savoring prasadam and regularly hearing, then we become more advanced in discipline. Taking rest early, waking up early, bathing regularly, and so forth. All those things become joyful. Especially bathing. One must bathe minimum twice a day. Brahmanas bathe usually 3 times a day. Twice a day bathing is very important for health and for well-being. And you have to have clean clothes and nails cut and so forth, everything. And in this way, one enjoys being very clean, orderly, and organized in their life. In the system of Varnashram Dharma, which is the beginning of actual human life, small boys after 5 years of age are sent to become brahmacharis at the guru's ashrama, where these things are systematically taught to boys, be they kings' sons or sons of ordinary citizens. The training was compulsory not only to create good citizens of the state, but also to prepare each boy's future for spiritual realization. The irresponsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the children of the followers of the Varnashram system. So we can see what's happening today. Kids are basically slaughtered by the unholy culture of sense gratification that is all pervading in this society, and it's really a shame. The irresponsible life of sense enjoyment was unknown to the children of the followers of the Varnashram system. The boy was even injected with spiritual acumen before being placed by the father in the womb of the mother. That is an amazing statement. Both the father and the mother were responsible for the boy's success in being liberated from the material bondage. That is the process of successful family planning. It is to beget children for complete perfection, without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient. No one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master, and without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. So, self-controlled, disciplined, and obedient. These are the 3 main things: self-controlled, disciplined, and obedient. And these are great things to learn. Any person who's a high achiever, in one way or other, is self-controlled, obedient, meaning they can follow instructions and they are not disruptive. Obedient and self-controlled, obedient, and disciplined. Without being fully obedient, without being disciplined, and without being self-controlled, no one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master. And without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. So if you teach your child to be self-controlled, disciplined, and fully obedient, that's education. That's culture. That completely supersedes all other types of so-called education. Someone who has those 3 qualities can succeed in whatever they do. Okay, so now the next verse, unless there's some question. Yeah.
In the purport it's mentioned that you were stating that we should have a relationship with the Krishna, which is most important. So when we look the alternative in the sense in the material world, we try to have a relationship with somebody with a reciprocation. But in the spiritual, like if you're trying to have a relationship with Krishna, in the initial stages, we are not in a position to see any reciprocation. So how
Are
do
you
we
really? You're not in any position to see any reciprocation? Well, speak for yourself. That's not true.
so how because our knowledge is from the
If
material
you follow the rules and regulations, you will see the reciprocation. If you don't see anything. If you follow the rules and regulations, you will see the reciprocation. You'll see it brighter than the sun. And if you don't see anything. It's like having a blindfold on. How do you see it? You see it in terms, in the first stages, you see it in terms of being able to do things you never thought you'd be able to do before. Like wake up early every day, chant 16 rounds every day, take 2 baths a day. Things you never imagined you would ever do. You start, and so that's the first step. And the second step is you're able to control lust, anger, and greed. I mean, progressively. You don't become a complete controller overnight, but you're progressively getting better at it. Lust, anger, and greed. That's something most people have a really tough time with. But devotees who are serious, who are above all obedient, taking instructions, right? They will be able to do that, to control lust, anger, and greed. And then the next stage, your memory improves, and you're able to capture not only memorizing things, but capture profound concepts that you never were able to do before. Things become, your range of consciousness increases, and you're able to understand and conceptualize things that you were not able to do before. They didn't make sense before. Now they make sense. So there are different levels in which there's reciprocation. Krishna says, the main reciprocation is like this. Tesam satyayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Krishna says, one who is always dedicated to me, thinking about me, serving me, I give them the knowledge by which they come to me. So this is a mysterious thing, but it's something that actually happens. Therefore, also he says that his special mercy is that he destroys the ignorance with the shining lamp of knowledge. Right? So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord tells Arjuna that basically there's no possibility of understanding the supreme truth, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, simply by speculating. For the supreme truth is so great that it is not possible to understand him or achieve him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several millions of years, and if he is not devoted, if he is not a lover of the supreme truth, he will never understand Krishna or the supreme truth. Only by devotional service is the supreme truth Krishna pleased, and by his inconceivable energy he can reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. See, that's the point. Reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. That's the reciprocation. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart, and with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. This is the special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. So this is reciprocation, special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. Due to the contamination of material associations through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears and one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. The dust quickly clears. That's the reciprocation. Right? The ultimate goal, Vishnu, can be attained only by this chant and by devotional service, and not by mental speculation or argument. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So if Krishna is pleased by our devotional service, then something mysterious happens. He provides everything necessary for your minimal maintenance. And you actually will experience that. He says, but when he removes the darkness from his heart, when the devotee removes darkness from his heart by practicing Krishna consciousness, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. So, we want the Lord to take charge, right? And he does when he sees how sincere we are in following his instructions. So, there's another very important verse in this subject where Krishna says, Shadavala Bhate Jnanam Tatpara Samyatendriya Jnanam Ladva Param Santim Achiren Adigachati. The 4th chapter, verse number 39, he says, a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. See, now this is again all about reciprocation. If we're dedicated to transcendental knowledge, it's like coming to classes, listening carefully, asking questions, and gradually doubts subside in the mind, and one becomes more determined to follow strictly. So, a faithful man who's, 1, dedicated to transcendental knowledge, and who subdues his senses. 2, you have to control the mind and the senses, is eligible to achieve such knowledge. 3, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. 4. So, you become dedicated to transcendental knowledge. In other words, instead of wasting time watching movies, doing nonsensical things, one is enthusiastic to hear about Krishna and chant the holy name and do service. And then your senses are subdued. You begin to control the senses. And then you become eligible to receive this knowledge, eligible to achieve the knowledge. And having achieved the knowledge, one experiences supreme spiritual peace. So Prabhupada says, Such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. So, you want to increase your faith in Krishna, you have to associate devotees who have faith in Krishna. You don't increase it by associating with people who have no faith in Krishna. One is a faithful man who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. Yeah, I don't have to do this thing or that thing. Simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness, one can attain the highest perfection in life. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna and who controls the senses can easily attain perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. This is 4th chapter, 39th verse. Then in the 12th chapter, 2nd verse, Prabhupada explains something really interesting. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, and sometimes he cooks prasadam or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi. So, these are simple things, right? You don't have to be a rocket engineer to do this. But if you do it, then Krishna reciprocates with you. And eventually you attain this supreme spiritual peace. And one becomes very confident. One has faith, strong faith, and one can see the hand of Krishna leading him in all his endeavors. To practice the regulative principles, this is 12th chapter, text number 9. To practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple and offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna. Then collect flowers to offer to the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity, take prasadam, and so on. There are various rules and regulations which one should follow, and one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. This practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he is sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. This practice of Bhakti Yoga under the rules and regulations with the direction of a spiritual master will surely bring one to the stage of love of God. There you are. So if you do these things, then you'll see Krishna reciprocating with you at every step of your life. This Bhakti Yoga means that you purify the senses and the mind. But right now our senses are impure because we engage in different types of sense gratification. But by practicing Bhakti Yoga, the senses can be purified. And in a purified state, they come directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. You see. That's reciprocation. Because as we surrender to the Lord, He reveals Himself progressively to us. Okay, so all this is about reciprocation. All this is about a mutual, let's say, relationship with the Lord. So you can't say that there's no reciprocation. Unless you don't do these things, then you could say it. But if you do these things, you will see the reciprocation. It's impossible to miss it. Okay. But that was a good question. Thank you. So now, text 25. So therefore, self-control, discipline, and obedience. Self-control, discipline, obedience. Okay. Uchista lepan anamodito dvijai. Sakrit smabunje tad apasta kilbasa. Evam pravritasya visuddha chetasas tad dharma evat moruchi prajayate. Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus, being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. You see, you take prasadam with faith, and spiritual life becomes more attractive, right? You drink wine, and sense gratification becomes more attractive. You eat prasadam, spiritual life becomes more attractive. Everything has an influence on human beings. So we should avoid those things that will give us more attraction to sense gratification, and accept those things that will get us attracted to Krishna. So basically, how did how did Narada Muni at such a young age become attracted to Krishna? By prasadam. Right? And association, both. Prasadam and positive association with pure devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Pure devotion is as much infectious, in a good sense, as infectious diseases. So just like you have coronavirus, which is very infectious. Pure devotion is even more infectious, but it's in a good sense. A pure devotee is cleared from all kinds of sins. The personality of Godhead is the purest entity, and unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord. So everything is about purification, right? So how do they want you to protect yourself from coronavirus? You know, wash your hands 20 times a day, and wear a mask, and do this, and do all preventive things. You have to be very clean and antiseptic. Just like, recently I went to the Safeway, and there was one lady that walked in before me, and she went through a little ritual that was amazing. I was really surprised. She took some of that liquid, antibacterial liquid, right? And she cleaned her hands with it. Then she took out a handkerchief, a tissue paper, right? And then she put some of that liquid on it, and she wiped the handle of the push cart, right? And then she put her hands on the push cart, right? I mean, it's a whole ritual. It's almost like, entering into the surgical room, So people are really very, very cautious about germs now, But the worst germ is nonsense. Television, the internet, all those things. That's the worst germ. They don't have any antiseptic for that. That's okay. The personality of God is the purest entity, and unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord. So, we have to purify our mind, our senses, and our body in order to approach Krishna. The Bhakti Vedantas, as above mentioned, were pure devotees, and the boy became infected with their qualities of purity by their association, and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. So you notice it's a very beautiful statement here. The boy became infected with their qualities of purity by their association and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. Such remnants may be taken even without permission of the pure devotees. And he's talking about stealing prasadam now. There are sometimes pseudo-devotees, and one should be very much cautious about them. There are many things which hinder one. So in other words, you have to choose your association. If you associate with people who claim to be devotees, but they're not manifesting the qualities of a devotee, then you have to be very careful there. So, self-controlled, disciplined, obedient. Now we're talking about real qualities of a devotee. Self-controlled, disciplined, obedient. And, of course, if you look at the 10th chapter, verses 4 and 5, it gets even more specific. 10th chapter, verse 4 and 5 says, Buddhir jnanam asammoha samasatyam dhammasama. Sukham dukham bhavo bhavo bhayam cha bhayam evacha. Himsa samata tustis tapo dhanam yasho yashaha. Bhavanti bhava bhutesu bhutanam, Bhavanti bhava bhutanam mata eva pratak vidaha. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, nonviolence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. And Prabhupada says, the different qualities of living entities, be they good or bad, are all created by Krishna, and they are described here. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in a proper perspective. And knowledge refers to understanding what is spirit and what is matter. Ordinary knowledge obtained by a university education pertains only to matter, and it is not accepted here as knowledge. That should be understood by everyone. This material knowledge is not knowledge. Knowledge means knowing the distinction between spirit and matter. In modern education, there's no knowledge about spirit. They are simply taking care of the material elements and bodily needs. Therefore, academic knowledge is not complete. Asammoha, freedom from doubt and delusion, can be achieved when one is not hesitant and when he understands the transcendental philosophy. Slowly but surely he becomes free from bewilderment. Nothing should be accepted blindly. Everything should be accepted with care and with caution. Well, what is our dilemma? Our dilemma is that everyone is born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities of love and hate. And those people who are sick mentally, and there's a lot of people that are sick mentally, they're always involved with this icha and dvesa, desire and hate. Icha and dvesa. How to overcome? So this icha is, one is deluded by the desire to enjoy the material world. And then one becomes envious of Krishna. Or before that, one became envious of Krishna, and they come to the material world. So now how do we overcome this material desires and this hatred? It's like someone frustrates you in getting your desire, you hate them. Sometimes you want to kill them, or you want them to die or something, right? And you're praying to God, please let that person die. So this is, everyone is born like that, in a state of delusion. Delusion means not only you have accepted something to be what it is not, but you're convinced of it and you're acting that way. See? Like, let's say you take a rope to be a snake. That's an illusion, right? But then, if you act as if the rope is a snake, then you're in a state of delusion. You're in a deluded state. You say, snake, snake, snake. And you start shaking and you're all excited and you jump up on a chair, to stay away from the snake. But when someone turns the light on, it's not a snake, it's just a piece of rope. So all that jumping up on the chair and snake, 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 it's all a deluded state of mind. And how did you become deluded? First you made a mistake, then you became convinced the mistake is true, and then you acted as if it's true. Right? Just like people say, I am this body, I don't know anything about a soul, I'm just this body, So what do they do when they think they're this body? Well, they try and enjoy as much sense gratification as possible. And, I don't want to go into examples, but the examples are ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, there was one person who, there are many persons who alter their body in order to have more sense gratification. Well, I'll give some extreme examples of it. One day I was in was it downtown Seattle or was it Capitol Hill? One or the other. I saw a person had 2 big bumps on their forehead. And then I didn't look at him too much, but I caught a certain glimpse of this person. They had 2 big bumps like this. They were coming out of his forehead like that. And the ears had been, I think cut or something. They were real sharp. And he had these types of pins and things in his eyelashes and his eyelid and his lip. And his teeth had been altered to look like the teeth of a like Dracula. Huh? You ever see anyone like that? No? Now, he wasn't born like that. He purposely had his body altered. Purposely had his body altered. Let's see if I can get a picture of someone like that. I don't know if I can catch it right now. Yeah, you found one? Oh, that's it. Yeah, extreme piercing. Yeah. Oh, you can show people. "20 extreme piercings you won't believe exist." Okay. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, okay. There's all different types. There's one right here. Yeah, they purposely do it. They purposely do it to themselves to look horrible.
From distance, looks like a boar.
Looks like what?
Looks like a pig or a boar.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so Prabhupada says here that when one is deluded into separation from his pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Now, if you ever feel in yourself like you have some strong desires and you're frustrated, you can't get them, and maybe someone was instrumental in getting you frustrated and getting your desires, you end up hating them, right? Just like sometimes two people get married, and after a little while certain things happen and they want to get a divorce. And then a divorce is a nasty divorce, and during the divorce, one person said, "I hate this person." Right? Well, before they said, "I love this person." Now it's, "I hate this person." Right? So this is going on. This is, and Prabhupada says here, the illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord. In other words, one gets so disgusted in the material world, they want to become a Mayavadi and merge into something. Either merge into nothingness, like the Buddhists, or merge into Brahma Jyoti and become God. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees, who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate, can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies. But those who are deluded by duality and ignorance think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc., thinking, "This is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife." These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, now wait a minute. This is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. Is it bad to think like that? Well, if one understands, this is my wife, but she actually belongs to Krishna. This is my husband, but he actually belongs to Krishna. And if they act like that, then their relationship is not based on the body. But if they don't act like that, and then they act on the level of the body, and that is wrong, or that leads to a lot of problems, let's put it like that. These are called the dualities of delusion. The ultimate delusion is two people have been married, let's say 65 years. They're both in a nursing home and they're both on the verge of dying. So what do? They put them in the same room together so they can hold hands as they're dying. And they usually die at the same time. There are many examples of this. It's been in the news in the last 3-4 years. A couple have been married 65, 70 years. And they're both in a nursing home, and now they're both on the verge of dying. And they put them together, both of them are, have oxygen tanks and everything, but they're holding hands so that they die holding hands. And everyone thinks this is such a wonderful thing. They loved each other so much all these years. Now, not to be cynical, I don't want to be cynical about it, But what will happen to them? You see, if they were both Krishna conscious, they would probably not be in that same scene at the moment of death. But they're both. I mean, everyone would think they're thinking of each other at the moment of death, right? They're holding hands and so forth. And there's pictures, a whole bunch of pictures on the internet of situations like that. So Prabhupada says, these are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, maybe they understand each other, but they don't understand Krishna. So that means they failed in their life. And they'll take birth again. So these are some things we have to think about. This Krishna consciousness is all about overcoming these dualities of delusion. This desire and hate. This icha and dvesa. So, this is done, as it says in this purport, by the association of pure devotees, all these obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of a pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of Godhead's name, fame, qualities, pastimes, etc. So instead of being attached to somebody else's body, you become attached to Krishna's transcendental personality. Husband and wife together both become attached to Krishna's transcendental personality and serve the Lord together. So these transcendental qualities of pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of Godhead's name, fame, qualities, pastimes, etc. Infection of the qualities of the pure devotee means to imbibe or to accept the taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. So this taste, just like you can, there are places you can go, there are cafes, there are certain clubs you go to where people taste poetry. I don't know if you've ever been to it. Something like that. They actually taste poetry. They'll sit down, someone reads a poem, and then afterwards they talk about it, and they taste it, right? The vicarious experiences that are described by word jugglery of the poetry. But devotees, they imbibe. Imbibe means they drink the taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Have you ever tasted the ambrosial or nectar, pure devotion in the transcendental activities of the personality of God? You ever taste that? See, just like, if you go to one of these seances where people are reading poetry and everyone is tasting it, they do that in a mundane way. It's a complete mundane experience, right? But here, it's actually transcendental. You imbibe. Imbibe means you drink. You drink the taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. See, Prabhupada is a very eloquent person, And the transcendental taste at once makes all material things distasteful. If you don't get this transcendental taste, you'll never lose your attraction for the mundane taste of materialistic poetry or stories of sense gratification and so forth. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasarajam rasapi asya param dristva nivartate. It says that there's a very beautiful verse. And it's, what is it, 50 something? 50. I always have trouble finding that verse. What is it? Vishaya vinivartante nirahara siddehina raso. Come on. Huh? What? 59. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. See? So Prabhupada says, unless one is transcendentally situated, it's not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., samadhi, is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. Those who do Ashtanga Yoga, they say, the people who are less intelligent, they engage in Bhakti Yoga, but we engage in Ashtanga Yoga, right? This is the real hardcore yoga. The Bhakti Yoga is for the weaklings. But actually it's the opposite. You see? So it says here, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So now the question is, how do you get this higher taste? Param dristva nivartate, right? By experiencing a higher taste, one is fixed in consciousness. Well, you can only get it by associating with genuine devotees who are not bitter, who are not what you would call vindictive, who are not upset, who are not envious, they're not dubious. They're happy, and they're not. They don't have material desires, and they don't have hatred. They don't have vengeance, or as they say in Hindi, badla. They don't have this badla syndrome. You always got to get be better than others and be vengeful. So this higher taste comes when one is peaceful in mind and satisfied by hearing and chanting and taking prasadam and dancing. And doesn't that make sense? Why get angry? Why be envious? Why get into fights? Why not just chant and dance happily and make people happy, right? And give them prasadam and talk about Krishna's transcendental pastimes and so forth. So here we see this stark difference between people who are deluded by the dualities of desire and hate and people who are enamored of Krishna and fully satisfied by chanting and dancing and feasting and say. Okay. So then it says, we go back to this 10th chapter, verses 4th and 5th. Shama, just like Shama Sawant. You know her? You know Shama Sawant? Yeah, to the buffoon that's a member of the city council. She's born in a Brahmana family, right? She's a complete atheist and a communist, and she's making a fool of herself. Anyway, Shama means tolerance and forgiveness should be practiced. One should be tolerant and excuse the minor offenses of others. So yesterday we were talking, in Vaishnavi's birthday, that a person can control anger and resentment by forgiveness. You have to learn to forgive people. It's not easy, but if you don't want to always be angry and vengeful and vindictive, then you have to forgive. So, Shama, tolerance and forgiveness should be practiced. One should be tolerant and excuse the minor offenses of others. Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. Facts should not be misrepresented. According to social conventions, it is said that one can speak the truth only when it is palatable to others. But that is not truthfulness. The truth should be spoken in a straightforward way so that others will understand actually what the facts are. If a man is a thief, and if people are warned that he is a thief, that is truth. Although sometimes the truth is unpalatable, one should not refrain from speaking it. Truthfulness demands that the facts be presented as they are for the benefit of others. That is the definition of truth. Well, anyway, this is a long purport and explains all these different qualities. Some are good and some are bad. So Bhagavad Gita teaches both. It teaches you what is good, it teaches what is bad. Otherwise, you might mix up the two and think that something bad is good and something good is bad, right? That's why it's so important for our children and for ourselves to understand Bhagavad Gita so we can differentiate between good and bad. Otherwise, we could be completely in the wrong and think that we're right, completely right, or vice versa. Okay, so here, this young boy, only 5 years old, he learns all these things in a short period of time, 4 months, just by listening and being self-disciplined and disciplined and obedient and associating with pure devotees. Instead of wasting time, one can get spiritual success by turning his attention to the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. By hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Lord, one contacts directly the personality of Godhead. And as explained before, by hearing about the personality of Godhead from within, all accumulated sins of the mundane creature are cleared. So this hearing is very important. By hearing, all the mundane sins can be, all the sins accumulated for many lifetimes can be purified. Thus, by being cleared of all sins, the hearer gradually becomes liberated from mundane association and becomes attracted to the features of the Lord. Narada Muni has just explained this by his personal experience. Personal experience. Every devotee gets this personal experience if they follow the rules and regulations. Self-discipline and, being obedient and, yeah. Okay, so then Narada Muni has just explained this by his personal experience. The whole idea is that simply by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, one can become one of the associates of the Lord. What can be more reciprocal than that? And become the associate of the Lord. Narada Muni has eternal life, unlimited knowledge, and unfathomed bliss, and he can travel all over the material and spiritual worlds without restriction. One can attain to the highest perfection of life simply by attentive hearing of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from the right sources, as Sri Narada heard them from the pure devotees, Bhakti Vedantas, in his previous life. This process of hearing in the association of devotees is especially recommended in this age of quarrel, Kali Yuga. So, okay, now this is what you achieve. This is what he achieved. Without going to school, without studying, what did he do? One can attain to the highest perfection of life simply by attentive hearing of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from the right sources, as Sri Narada heard them from the pure devotees, Bhaktivedantas, in his previous life. He has eternal life, unlimited knowledge, and unfathomed bliss, and he can travel all over the material and spiritual worlds without restriction. That's what you call success, right? Okay, any questions? These are all very important purports. You know. Self-control, discipline, and obedience. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so we have one more verse here, verse 27. O great sage, as soon as I got a taste, so you see this idea of a taste. Just like, you taste a gulab, right? Or you taste misti dahi, or you taste a very, very good burfi, right? So you have that taste that you can remember that taste. So you can also taste the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And then that taste is so powerful that you lose the taste for sense gratification. The taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality Godhead. This transcendental taste at once makes all material things distasteful. So here it says, O great sage, as soon as I got the taste of the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings. For both the Lord and I are transcendental. So I realized I got this body covering my soul. And there's a gross body and a subtle body. And it's only due to ignorance. The body is a symbol of our ignorance. It's limiting. It's miserable. All pains and troubles are caused by the body. Right? There's something going wrong with the body all the time. Right? You have a stomach ache, you have an eye ache, you have an earache, you get coronavirus, you get this virus, you get that virus, you have high blood pressure, you have low blood pressure, you get dizziness, you have tinnitus, you're hearing noises in your ear, right? It's unbelievable, all the things that go wrong with the body. And it's the sign of ignorance. He says that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Ignorance of material existence is compared to darkness, and in all Vedic literatures, the personality of God is compared to the sun. So that's why people say, Om Pur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varendyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yunaha Prachodayat. So this is one line of the Gayatri mantra. And you begin by offering obeisances and homage to the sun, because the sun is the source of all light in the universe, and light is compared to knowledge. And the sunlight actually is a reflection off the sun of the Brahma Jyoti. And the Brahma Jyoti, it's very interesting to understand what the Brahma Jyoti is exactly. It's explained in the Brahma Samhita. And it says, in the Brahma Samhita, verse number 16. 5th chapter, verse number 16. It says, the innumerable jivas as spiritual particles emanating from the oversoul in the form of pencils of rays of effulgence have no relation with the mundane world when they come to know themselves to be the eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. So, the jivas are spiritual particles emanating from the supersoul in the form of pencils of rays of light. Then, later on, it says, anyway, it says that the brahmacharya is made of infinite jivas. They're like rays of light, or pencils of rays of light. How come I don't see that? It's strange. Okay, anyway, I'll find it. Yeah. Verse 21, it says, the jivas are the infinitesimal particles of his spiritual effulgence and are, therefore, not perishable like mundane things. Jivas, being particles of Godhead's effulgent rays, exhibit on a minute scale the qualities of the divinity. Hence, jivas are identical with the principles of knowledge, knower, egoism, enjoyer, meditator, and doer. Krishna is the all-pervading and all-extending Supreme Lord, while jivas have a different nature from his, being his atomic particles. The eternal relationship consists in this, that the Supreme Lord is the eternal master and the jivas are his eternal servants. So, the jivas, we're all are atoms of the Brahmajyoti. We're the light that's emanating from Krishna's body is full of jivas, of individual souls. That's where we come from. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. It's not only in the Brahma Samhita, where it says, let me find that. It says that in Bhagavad Gita, in the Brahman effulgence. So it says the light, 5th chapter 20, okay. The, okay, 7th chapter, 8th verse, Bhagavad Gita says, the light of the sun and the moon is also originally emanating from the Brahma Jyoti, which is the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. Okay, so 7th chapter, 8th verse says, Prabhasmi Sasi Suraya, and I am the light. Yeah, I am coming from the Brahma Jyoti. So, the Brahma Jyoti is made up of infinite jivas. And they enter into the world through this light that's reflected off of the sun and the moon. See? That's who we really are. We're not this body. We have an eternal soul. But it's infinitesimal. So here then it says, when ignorance is removed and it is perfectly realized that there is nothing existing without the personality of Godhead, then nescience is removed. Since the gross and subtle bodies are emanations from the personality of Godhead, the knowledge of light permits one to engage both of them in the service of the Lord. The gross body should be engaged in acts of rendering service to the Lord, as in bringing water, cleansing the temple, or making obeisances, etc. The path of archana, or worshipping the Lord in the temple, involves engaging one's gross body in the service of the Lord. Similarly, the subtle mind should be engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, thinking about them, chanting His name, etc. All such activities are transcendental. None of the gross or subtle senses should otherwise be engaged. Such realization of transcendental activities is made possible by many, many years of apprenticeship in devotional service, but simply attraction of love for the personality of Godhead, as it was developed in Narada Muni by hearing, is highly effective. So, what is he recommending? Hearing. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, with self-control, discipline, and obedience. Right? And then all sins are eradicated, and one becomes a lover of Krishna. And he says this hearing is highly effective. So, if we develop a taste for hearing, then we can help others develop this taste for hearing. Hearing about Krishna, of course. Now, everyone's developing a taste for hearing in life. You can see these kids, they're walking down the street and they have their earphones on. And what are they hearing? Hearing rap music, I call it rat music, right? And they're moving like this as they're walking down the street, So they're hearing also. And it's affecting them in a very significant way, the way they perceive the world, the way they see themselves, and it's all about sense gratification. So the hearing, everybody's hearing. Now the question is, what are you hearing? So if we develop a taste to hear about Krishna, then everything becomes transcendental. And if we develop the taste for hearing, politics and the stock market, and sports, then we become completely bewildered and waste our life on nonsense. Okay, so are there any questions? I think we'll stop right there. It's 9:15. It's getting late. Time to take rest so that we can wake up early. Prabhu, you should come Mangalarti every day. Where do you live? Across the street. And what are you doing 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning? You should change your lifestyle, Prabhu. You don't have to change your job. You can continue working. But if you take rest now, you'll be able to wake up around 4 o'clock. Right? You'll have almost 7 hours of sleep. You're only supposed to sleep 6 hours, but you can get 7 hours if you take rest right away. And you can come to Mangalarti, and then we have class 6:15 in the morning. And then you can go back and take another hour or two of rest and go to work. How about that? How's that sound? Does that sound doable? Okay, no questions or any questions? If not, then we will stop and start on verse 28. These are all important verses. They're very, very good to develop a taste for hearing about Krishna. Once we get that taste for hearing, everything else is easy. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. Now you know where you came from. You came from Krishna, and you are a pencil